All right, so today we're diving into the Old Testament, specifically Jeremiah chapter 2. And let's be honest, it is full of some raw, really passionate, and kind of difficult language. But what if we could look at it through a completely modern lens? We're going to use a communication tool, one that's actually designed for resolving conflict, to find a whole new perspective on this ancient cry from a broken relationship.
So the way this whole chapter is set up, it's basically a divine lawsuit. You have God, speaking through the prophet Jeremiah, bringing a case against his people. And he kicks it off with this just gut-wrenching question, pretty much asking, what did I do wrong? Seriously, why did you leave me? It's this incredibly powerful, painful opening statement in a case about a relationship that has been completely shattered.
When you read it, the text is just overflowing with accusations, with blame, with these really harsh judgments, and it's super easy to get stuck right there. So instead, we're going to ask a different kind of question. We're going to try and look past all that surface-level anger to really understand the deeper communication that's happening here.
And the way we're going to do that is with a tool called nonviolent communication, or NVC for short. The guy who created it, Marshall Rosenberg, he called it a language of life. The core idea is pretty simple. No matter what people are actually saying, underneath all those words, you'll find universal human feelings and needs. It's a framework for translating conflict into a chance for real, compassionate connection.
Okay, so this is the toolkit we're going to use. NVC has 4 basic parts. First up, you make an observation, just stating the facts without any judgment. Second, you express the feeling that observation brings up in you. Third, and this is the big one, you identify the unmet need that's causing that feeling. And finally, you make a clear, positive request. We're going to use these 4 components like a lens to decode all that difficult language in Jeremiah.
And this right here, this quote from Rosenberg, is the absolute key to everything we're about to do. He argues that whenever we use judgmental language, calling someone lazy or selfish, or using the kind of harsh terms we see in Jeremiah, what we're actually doing is making this tragic, roundabout attempt to talk about our own unmet needs. This is the exact insight we're going to use for our translation.
All right, let's get our hands dirty. We're now going to apply this NVC lens directly to some of the most potent verses in Jeremiah chapter 2. We're going to translate the accusations to find the universal needs hiding underneath.
So the text uses this incredibly strong, shocking metaphor of adultery. Now that's a judgment, right? It's a flat-out accusation of betrayal. But if we look for the unmet need behind that judgment, what do we find? We find this profound cry for faithfulness, for an exclusive relationship, for trust. The anger is really a tragic expression of a deep, deep need for connection and intimacy.
Let's take another one. Here, the text calls the people a degenerate plant of an alien vine. This judgment is all about corruption, about becoming something you were never meant to be. So if we translate this, what we hear is an unmet need for authenticity, for quality, for a relationship built on a foundation of shared values.
And then there's this really visceral image. The text compares the people to a wild donkey, just sniffing at the wind, completely driven by impulse. It's an image of pure chaos. And behind that judgment, you can just hear this deep need for stability, for reliability, for a partnership that's built on mutual consideration, not just reckless impulse.
Okay, so we've been translating these judgments into needs. But what about the feelings? Remember, in NVC, feelings are like signals that point directly to our needs. All that angry, accusatory language we see in Jeremiah, that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's a giant signpost pointing to something much deeper and way more vulnerable.
So what this means is that all the anger we're reading is really just masking this whole landscape of other emotions. I mean, when your needs for trust and security go unmet, you don't just feel angry. You feel hurt. You feel scared, desperate, maybe even forsaken. And according to NBC, this is a universal human thing. Underneath our anger, there's almost always a deep well of pain and fear.
Now let's talk about that 4th component of NVC, the request. NVC makes this really crucial distinction between a request, which always gives the other person a choice, and a demand, which implies there's going to be a threat if they don't comply. And this difference is absolutely critical for understanding the communication style here in Jeremiah. Think about it. When people hear a demand, they typically see only 2 options: give in or fight back, submission or rebellion. Neither one of those creates a compassionate connection. A demand just fundamentally blocks empathy because it's all about coercion, not choice.
This verse is a perfect example of what we're talking about. Notice, this isn't a request like, hey, would you be willing to come back?
No, this is a prediction of consequences. It's a statement that says if you don't comply, punishment is just the natural outcome. So in NVC terms, this totally functions as a demand because there's an implicit threat of punishment for not complying.
So, after going on this whole journey of translation, what have we actually learned? How does applying this framework change the way we read this ancient, passionate, and, let's face it, often difficult text? What's the big takeaway here?
It really boils down to this. The NVC lens shifts our entire focus. Instead of reading Jeremiah 2 as just a story of blame and judgment, we can start to hear it as a profound story of pain. We get to see past the anger to the universal human, or in this case, divine, experience of having your needs for trust, connection, and security go completely unmet. It transforms the whole thing from a rant into a tragedy, inviting our empathy instead of just our defensiveness. And that leaves us with one final question to really think about. If a tool like this can help us find the pain and the unmet needs behind the anger in a 2,600-year-old sacred text, what could it do for us today? If we can learn to hear the needs behind even divine anger, whose anger in our own lives, in our families, our workplaces, our communities, can't we learn to hear with just a little bit more compassion?